some of the folks who are joining us, though, let me first go back to that. So we've got Maryann, Charles, Diana, and hopefully Jessica will be making it here as well. So why don't we do quick intros? Maryann, you're over on my furthest left, so we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Maryann Lazzeri. I have been attending office hours for over a year. I helped Jan facilitate them wonderfully. Welcome. We're here to talk about portfolios. I'm excited to dig in.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Charles, you were the one who had the idea, and I was talking to Maryann at the time, so I roped you both in immediately.
Right, exactly. Like you just mentioned an idea to Jan and she put you to work. She's like, I don't have a session planned on that, but we can do a session on that. My name's Charles Wright. I'm newer to office hours. I met Jan. I think I followed Jan a long time before we actually connected for the first time. And I've been a part of the office hours group now for a couple of months, but really excited to talk about this topic today. And we have a great group. So, and Maryann and I have enjoyed preparing for this from day one. And then we added Jessica and Diana last week.
And Diana, you inspired Maryann as well. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit real quick.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Diana de Jesus, and I'm the founder of the Customer Success Project. And Maryann and I were hanging out a couple of weeks ago talking about customer success profiles in a customer success career cohort that we were doing together. So we're going to take you through it, why it's important. Maryann's going to show her sample. So I'm really excited to get to that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Excited to have you all here. And I'm going to share my screen again and we'll dig right in. Okay. So why, what, and some other things. First of all, why? Somebody else want to jump in first on kind of what your thoughts are? Why? Because we each started putting these together independently and then discovered between us that we all had this thought. So
I'm happy to kick this
Sure.
one off. So
Yeah.
for me, the why around personal portfolios, it's a topic that comes up a lot. But I create TikToks as well. And one thing that I do as part of TikTok creation is I see a lot of influencers and what they do and how they get brand deals. And I'm not really too deep in that space, but they do have this like portfolio that helps them acquire different brand deals. And it's just an outline of what they've done, how they've worked with different companies to hopefully get new deals. So I think it's something that we should include in our swipe file in customer success as like, hey, we do have what it takes to create our own portfolios, not just when we're looking for jobs, but as we're also in our jobs to document the things that we're doing properly, the things that we've built, because 2 years down the road, we don't remember all the little things that we've done in a job. So it's a good way to continue accumulating all the experience that we've done. And then when we get to interviews, it does help us set ourselves apart.
And my impulse, actually, my first impulse was somebody said, if you are a leader, then you should have your thought leadership. You should have a sense of like how you approach, your profession. And so I started thinking about like, okay, so what is that? And so I'll show you in a bit, but I came up with the P's and T's of customer success and started to think through, what was my approach and how did I see things? So that's, something that I often, suggest to leaders as they're trying to put together their thought leadership. The other example that I have is when I was going through a job interview and I was able to get a bunch of information from the founder initially. And then I figured I don't want to talk to him in an interview situation and go through a resume and have to prove myself. I want to just show him what I could do. So I put together slides about his company and what he needed done. So I did something like that, right? So that's another example I'll show you. So Maryann, Charles, what was behind?
Yeah, I was going to echo some of the thoughts you just shared, Jan. My Amazon Echo just went off. Let me unplug that really quick. But yeah, echo some of the comments you just made. Some of the slides that I pulled for today are exactly that. They are my thought leadership activities, but these are things that become a natural part of a case study interview you could do with a company, right? And like if for some reason you couldn't weave one of these things into your case study interview that you're presenting, they can certainly become part of an appendix, right? So like if a someone was to ask you a question like, hey, talk to me about how you've built teams in the past, right? Like one of these slides falls into an appendix. You're like, oh, I have a slide for that. Like I'm happy to go there and show you.
Appendix is key. Yeah. So that you can always like go to something if you needed to. Yeah. Maryann?
Yeah. And Diana had such great ideas of listing your accomplishments and things that you've done, because like she mentioned, we don't always keep track of them or know. So now that I have this, I actually have an accomplishment tracker that I keep on the side that I just add things to every time I have something new, that you don't always have to reinvent the wheel and redo it, but you can just keep adding to it. So then making this portfolio was pretty easy because I just kind of went through those accomplishments, and I'll show it to you a little bit later.
Yeah.
So you can showcase your own.
And then Jessica, who we were meeting with, and I don't know if she's here yet, but what hers was around board meetings and showing off her CS program, right? And so there's a variety of different reasons why you might put together either a personal or professional profile or portfolio, excuse me. But you first need to answer that. Why am I putting it together, right? Because if you know why, then you also sort of know your who's your audience. And are you doing it for a hiring manager? If so, what do they care about? What would you want to include? Are you doing it for a board? If so, what do they care about? What do you want to be sure to include? You know, and things like that. Or you just doing it for yourself? Because as soon as you have to put things in slides, you have to be very articulate, because all of a sudden you only get a few words, right? You get just a few words. Even if you scrunch a bunch on a sheet, you only get a few. All right. We talked also about the what's, I think, when we talked through the why, because we talked about, but Maryann, you have something that's a little different, right? You have like a Salesforce.
I wanted to highlight not just my customer success accomplishments, but also my Salesforce skills. So I built mine on the Salesforce platform, like on the back end, and I'll show it to you in a little bit of what yours doesn't have to look like mine. I originally built it on Canva, and then I used those slides on Canva that I uploaded into Salesforce and just kind of like built the different pages and tabs and things. Yeah,
All right.
Canva is a wonderful resource if you're looking to build a portfolio, because they have great templates that you can just plug in your things into the templates, so you're not starting from scratch. There are others too. You don't have to use Canva, but I think that's one of the easiest ones to start with.
Or let's say you were going for a job at Miro or something, or Mural, right? And that you may want to create one that's actually using their tool, similar to how you created yours in Salesforce. You're showing them, I can use the tool, right?
Yep.
So, all right. So you work through the steps. You have your goal, what your purpose is, right? For this, you have some sort of format or structure that you're going to come up with, and you have your audience. Does that make sense? Is there any questions? You know, we will get into some samples. Any other questions about that? Trevor.
Well, I might be jumping the gun a little bit since you said more about samples. Well, maybe not. One of the problems that I've struggled with when it comes to putting together a portfolio is figuring out how to pull work, you know, out of your day-to-day without sort of compromising, you know, organizational information. Like being able to show, oh, well, here's a, you know, a presentation I put together, or, you know, this is how I saved a Red account, you know, because a lot of what we do without being able to show those kinds of presentations or emails or correspondence or whatever, a lot of what we do is kind of a little bit more qualitative. And so sometimes I struggle with that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, sometimes you can do that by describing it. I can look for an example, maybe after the breakout groups, but I have one where I put together sort of like these sample QBR, you know, sample QBR. This is years ago when I was going for a head of CS role. And what I ended up doing was sort of masking who the companies were and kind of describing them. Enterprise A, Enterprise B, you know, that sort of thing, right? So there's ways of getting around that, but it's true. If you're going into an interview process, you do need to mask the information that you're sharing in that respect.
Yeah, I guess the main question I have with it is, you know, because like different employers are differing views on how much you can share information. Like for instance, like sometimes they're not super great about, hey, you're sending presentation materials to your personal email. What's going on with that? Or, you know, things like
Oh,
that. Yeah. It's
yeah.
like, how do you walk that kind of a line to, you know, pull things from like real things? Obviously, you change the names of the company and all of that, but to actually get the content to yourself. I've heard some companies really do not like it when you do things like that. Like mine, a little iffy on some of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah,
I can take this one, Jan. So
sure.
totally hear you on the privacy piece, and obviously, well, you know, keep that in mind. We also sign NDAs when we start working with these companies, so don't do anything that's going to impact you in a negative way. But instead of using, when we talk about numerical values, I'd like to use percentages instead of, let's say, like dollar sign. If I'm talking about how much revenue I manage, I will just say multi-million instead of saying like exactly this amount. Instead of even going with a number, I'll talk about a specific segment, because, you know, just because I worked with enterprise that were, we defined it as $300,000 account, Salesforce might define enterprise as multi-million-dollar account. So the number there wouldn't matter. And then when you try to, you know, take, let's say, a process that you've built, as much as you can, try to make it agnostic in your own space. So one thing that I did to track all the stuff that that I worked on is just have a Notion board. Completed a project, I would just say like, here's the outline, here's a quick like rough template of what I did, what I included in my slides, things like that. So I'm not directly taking from the intellectual property that belongs to the company, but it's still my ideas, and I'm able to just dump that in a Notion. When I'm ready and I have my space, I can rebuild that, hopefully recollecting some of the things that I remember, but it's not word by word and, you know, specific to the company. It's agnostic because it's still my idea. I still created this. It has nothing to do with the company. So for example, you talked about a quarterly business review. A quarterly business review, you would start with a template. So think about what your template is, and that's what you're going with, not necessarily the template I use with that specific account. If it was at risk and you ran a specific play, then it's the playbook. It's not what you did with that specific account. So try to get more of a like bird's eye than directly, here's like what I did, very concrete, and here's the very direct example, if that helps.
I think you can just give ideas. Like you don't have to give the actual names or numbers. You can just kind of give like a little summary of what you did, you know, like percentage wise, like you said, or accounts you managed or things like that. This way they don't need to know specifics for that specific company.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I found that when I'm, you know, if you're speaking to it on a resume, I will say I had a 30 million book of business kind of thing,
Right.
because then they know what it was. You know, my part in the business is a portion of it. It's not the whole business, right? So, but when you're looking at in terms of how you're building, let's get into the samples, and then you can kind of get a sense of what we're doing. The other thing I'll just mention is rule of 3s and 4s. This goes with anytime you're doing presentations, anytime you're doing just, you know, speaking to groups, getting an idea across. When you think about phone numbers in the days when we used to have to remember phone numbers, it was, you know, put in groups of 3s and 4s, right? That's about as much as our brain really attaches to. And so you want to think about concepts of 3s and 4s. So I'll give you, that's part of then how I came up with the P's and T's of customer success. So I'll show you. When I was putting together, this is some time ago, thought leadership around customer success, I had P's and T's, and then I had priorities, program, tools, and team, right? Now, this is where it broke down. I didn't keep it in groups of 3s and 4s. If I was going to go back and do this today, when you're thinking, you know, I've read a lot more about neuroscience and that sort of thing, I would put these still in buckets of 3s and 4s under the priorities, program, tools, and teams. Because you can remember priorities, program, tools, and teams. There's like 15 things under this. You're not going to remember all of those things, right? Plus, you know, I have it sideways and whatever. But anyway, so then but what this did for me is it required me to go through and think about, what do I really think? Even when I had lists of things and things like that in here, this isn't everything, right? These are names of things that, like, from that, I can think of a lot of different things, right? When you have to go through and put it through in these categories, you have to really start to think through what do I think of this, you know, and all of that. Now, I don't use this anymore because I don't think of it that way anymore, but that's okay too. You can evolve over time. But if you had to come up with the 4 buckets of how you approach building a CS program, your 4 buckets of how you approach you know, a new book of business, think about it, 30, 60, 90, what you're doing in your 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? Like, that's got a bucket of 3, right? So it's very easy to remember, right? So how, for whatever your presentation might be, thinking about that. Now, here's another one. This is the one where I was talking to the founder, and I first gave him what our agenda was. This is like a few discussions through. I've had one initially that had like just a few talking points. I went through and did like an overview of the company, where they were in the competitive landscape. He did not agree with me at all about the competitive landscape. That was okay. I explained to him, maybe some of your customers view you this way. That's something to be aware of. We had a discussion about it, you know, and that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a place of pointed discussion. This is something where there was employers and then there were end users, employees. So I went through and did a journey. I didn't have all the information. So anything that was a question, I put in orange, right? And I went through and said, okay, this is what I understand of your journey. You know, these are some questions I still have, but gave us discussion points. I had recommendations or questions in orange, right? I went through. Now he wanted, this is through a couple of conversations through it. He wanted to have like, how would I onboard new customers? I told him about an onboarding process that was 45 days out. It's like, whoa, 45 days. If my customers aren't onboarded in 20 minutes, we've got problems. I recalibrated. I came up with easy 1, 2, 3. I showed him, you know, what the email was going to look like. I gave him a link to what the Google form would look like, you know, whatever. Anyway, so there's things that then I went through the team member journey and eventually then got over to the 30, 60, 90. This is what I did for my relevant experience. I included McDonald's and a cafe that I worked at because they work with, you know, those folks. I don't have that on my resume, right? These were questions for him. This was, you know, me, whatever. These were my extra slides in case he had questions, right? Like what Charles was talking about. So you always have some extra slides. If you were going to do a process like that, it's sort of like a sales process. When I was in sales, we always had our appendix of slides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you, if they had a question, but you try to have fewer slides than, you know, that you actually have to go through, right? But it's just if a question comes up. Charles, did you want to maybe show real quick some of the slides you had and what you were thinking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me share here real quick. So similar along the same kind of lines Jan was speaking about, some of my slides are geared toward CS leaders in the room, but you could also tailor these slides if you were an individual contributor or CSM. The first slide I have here is just Jan and I, and maybe some others in the room, are on the Catalyst Software Customer-Led Growth Advisory Board. Customer-led growth, a hot topic right now. This is a great example of a slide you could throw in that showcases your thought leadership, also a hot topic right now. If you're going to throw it in though, I would advise like having a scenario where you applied it in the past, and if you're in a conversation with the company, how you might apply it to their business and how you could take advantage of it there and a way you could leverage it. I would also say with all of my slides here too, these could be slides that showcase your thought leadership, but these also could become part of a case study interview or a conversation you're having with an employer. I was chatting with Jan about this earlier. I'm a huge advocate of this for those of you who are exploring CS, Most of these case studies you're going to do will manifest themselves as some form of a QBR, EBR probably, but these are all slides you can keep. No need to reinvent the wheel. Like you get the next case study, you know, maybe change the colors, change the logo. If you have a deck you love, settle on it. Jan and I also talked about this, a lot of great templates online, so don't feel like you have to build this all yourself, but these are specifically for me, some of the most important points when it comes to enabling a CS team and what I see as the highest level priorities for enabling a CS team. But once again, if you're in a conversation with an employer, potentially you've done that interview with the team, you know what their gaps are, fill in the blank here with the things that are the biggest priorities for them. Next slide. I did a quick debrief on moving from reactive to proactive. Jan, you had a question.
Well, I was just going to say, these are gorgeous slides, way better than the ones I did from a few years back. How'd you get them so pretty?
Yeah, I use as many templates as I can find, Jan. Like whatever's out there, I use everything I can. Like, why reinvent the wheel? If it's available to you, use it, give credit where credit's due. That's something that can totally go in your appendix, but don't feel like you need to reinvent the wheel.
Well, and even the Google slides, a lot of times you can use the AI features now, and there'll be all those templates in here. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just a quick snapshot on reactive to proactive. Once again, a hot topic. And as customer success teams go to downsize, they're going to backslide into more reactive behaviors. There's always going to be a need for being able to go reactive to proactive. These are just some common themes I've found often exist in a customer success team that is reactive. And I just talked through how I address these in team structure, how I build teams, develop teams. And those are my 4 slides, Jan.
Yep. And then Maryann, you had some. I think especially the Salesforce, because it's so different.
Sure. I'll show you. Let me share this. So again, I made it on Canva originally, but I uploaded them all into Salesforce and showed how I have different tabs. Salesforce has a bunch of different mascots and characters. Can you see my portfolio?
Yeah.
Okay. So I made it so that when you click on them, it takes you to the slide that I made on Canva. Again, I like them to look pretty as well. So Canva is a wonderful resource to find pretty templates. These are all just different things. So I put in credentials so they know what my certifications and where I went to school. Then I have a customer success win slide. I can easily talk to any of these stats on here. I just put them in, going back to what you said, Trevor, about not having different company like names and things like that. These are all just very generic. And if they ask me any questions, I can speak to every single one of these. I didn't want to put anything in particular for the same reason, for privacy reasons or whatever. I have some strategic initiatives that I had in here. I also feel like you can use this, and Diana mentioned this, that you can like kind of show your personality as well, because a resume is a boring piece of paper. And at the end of the day, people hire someone they want to work with. So if you can speak to these kinds of things, have some hobbies in here. I volunteer a lot, so I put a bunch of volunteerism things that I do. And then at the end, I have a contact me page where I included a flow at the bottom where it'll shoot an email to me that somebody wants to talk to me, and then they'll get a thank you email in addition. So just like different things you can do within your portfolio.
And so this is actually in Salesforce then?
I built this in Salesforce, yeah. So this is kind of, I built it all in the back end to show just that I have the Salesforce skills to do this, and to, so that it shows, like I said, both skills, customer success skills as well as Salesforce skills.
Awesome.
Yeah. Did someone have a question?
Erica?
Yes, I had a question because I didn't understand the Salesforce part, but this is kind of, you can also do like in this, like in a website type of thing. Like if you could like create like about me section, like just a website with all of this information where you can scroll down and share that, or have it done in I don't know, like in a PowerPoint instead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I just did it on here because I'm looking for roles within the Salesforce ecosystem. So that's why I did it on Salesforce. Thank you. Thank you. But
very nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that's exactly it. So if you are applying to a company that has tools, right, then use their tools, and show them that you've thought about this, that you're really engaged with them, right? But you don't have to. You can also put it in slides, but that just gets you like an extra. Hey, Jen.
Points.
Dan, I saw a couple of things coming through the chat I was going to address. Like Trevor, you mentioned like you're design challenged. I think I'm design challenged. Just know that, like, you're not alone. There's a lot of stuff out there. Like if if I can be of assistance, I'm always happy to. Just ping me on LinkedIn. But I feel like I'm design challenged. I'd also say if you're interviewing with companies, you can often find a media kit. You know, like I know my most recent company, you go to the footer of their website, there's a media kit, right? Like all their colors are there, all their logos are there. So like if you're walking into one of these interviews and you want to make sure you have a high quality PNG logo, like those are there and their colors are there. Not all companies, right? I recently did a case study interview and I had to do a lot of hacking in Photoshop, like not always fun. Like I'm like paintbrush, magnifying glass, find the color, use it on the slides. It's a lot of work.
Even the same fonts, right?
Yeah.
You know, Jan,
Yeah.
this also would be applicable for anyone looking for like your annual performance review, or if you're looking to get a promotion. This is a great way to kind of highlight. I love this, Maryann. I know you showed this to me before, but I'm just so impressed with it. But it's a great way to just highlight your accomplishments. And you know, we don't always do. I'm definitely don't do a good job of that, and that's something I'm working on right now. But I think really for your existing role, to create a new role or to go to that next level, this is a way to really quantify for your boss and something he can show his leadership to justify potentially a big raise and or promotion.
Absolutely. I also think none of us are good at keeping track of our accomplishments unless you put it on a tracker, which I had never even thought of before speaking with Diana. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so smart. And then I had to go back and figure things out. And I have metrics on my resume, but I feel like this just kind of gives it an extra oomph with like colors and slides and different things. It just makes it look prettier. So I agree. Keeping track of that is
the reason why I'm sharing is because I thought the other day when I was in here that it was giving me AI options and stuff like that. Maybe it was when I was in PowerPoint instead. But I was
that might
in
have been
here.
those tools.
Sorry?
That might have been those tools from that AI
Oh,
summit.
tools. Maybe it's here or something. But I know that like you don't have to go and be in Canva, which also has free. Like there are ways in which it will give you options, but
PowerPoint has designer.
maybe
and so
that's it.
That's what it is. So you basically like you just take a plain slide and the designer gives you options, and it's pretty good. Not as good as Maryann's, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yes, Erica?
Mine is all Canva. Mine is truly, I'm going to pull up Canva just to show you how easy this is.
All right.
It's insane. You just type in like portfolio and then there are hundreds, thousands to choose from.
Maryann, I'm going to ping you for a personal tutoring lesson, and I'll pay you back a dinner in Chicago. I'll make a special trip to pay you back.
Make a special trip.
I will do that.
So let me just share a couple things here. There's resources. This is also various portfolio sections you can think about for a personal CSM portfolio. These are questions for that we'll go to for the breakout here, but we'll let Erica ask her question and we'll go to breakouts because we're totally running late here. But yes.
So I have a question. When you are looking to land a new role and you're applying, when is the best time to share this portfolio? Is it like sending your application and attaching your portfolio? Hey, this is additional information on me, or when would be the best time?
I know Diana can speak to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Diana can tell you all about this.
So how long? No, I'm kidding. We'll do the quick, but so basically you don't want to do it for every company. This is just, I always talk about like, how much effort do you want to exert for the role you're applying to? If it's like, whatever, I'm just kind of throwing my name in there. Obviously it's like, but the ones that you're like, I really want this job. I might do some outreach where it's like, hey, really love what you're doing at XYZ. Try to tie it to something that you have in common with them. And then say, I want to share a little bit about myself, just in case you want to get to know more of my working style, or if you want to get to know what I've done in the past, and how I might align with your company. So I might share it there. If I haven't shared it yet, and I'm a little hesitant, I might actually hold off till when I'm further into the interview and I'm like, this is me, the closer, like trying to come in and say like, here is me, here is my style, just at the end. So it really comes down to the level of effort you're trying to exert when you're applying. And also, does it feel like it's the right time? Is this the right person? Like, I wouldn't share this with a recruiter. They don't care. They don't know what the hell customer success is. They're like, girl, yeah, what is this? So I'm going to share it with the right person at the right time.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's either to get the attention either to get the attention or to kind of close the deal in a way.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a kind of thing too, like when I was going for a head of CS role, and I was speaking to the founder the whole time, because there were only 9 people in the company back then, right? Because I was going for, pre-seed kind of date. And so I developed it as I went along and used it as a way of showing that I heard him and continued the conversation with him, right? But that was because I was actually interested. Like I didn't do that for every situation.
No,
Yeah.
obviously not. You can't do this type of effort for every company, and it's just for like your dream job type of situation.
But Erica, also when you take a look at what you've shown me in the past, when you were looking for a promotion at your company, you did something similar, right?
Yes.
And so it's the same type of thing that, like when you were doing it for promotion. The other thing that unfortunately Jessica couldn't make it today, but she was showing what she had put together for her board. And sometimes you have to do slides that are specific to, like, everybody's going to fill in the same information, same blocks and that sort of thing. You don't have much flexibility in a board presentation. Other times though, if you're doing on a specific situation or if a different sort of company, you might be able to do some things. And so then when you want to do is we want to think about, what does that person, the same sort of questions that you ask when you're putting it together for the interviews, but you're doing it for the other situation. What do they care about? What do I need to be sure that I hit? But also I want to pique their interest and get them asking questions and thinking about, like, oh, wait, what are you showing me here? So that it's not necessarily always what they expect, right? And so then think about, then how do you get them engaged in it? And so that then you're sharing with them, what you want them to know as well. So it's not just what do they want to know, but what information do you want to impart? And then always think in terms of rules of 3s and 4s. Okay, so we have some questions. Can we put in does everybody have the questions already? Can we go ahead and put that link again over in the chat so everybody can get their breakout questions? We're pretty much going to be coming back with just like a minute left of today's session when we come back. So I'm going to set up the breakout rooms. Everybody, do you have the questions, the link? Oh, there we go. Session breakout notes. Thank you, Sharuk. And so everybody be sure to grab that. I've got 10 rooms we're creating. We'll go out to the breakout rooms, get the questions from the breakout notes before you go. And I'll bring you back here in 20 minutes. I know that I've just been looking through the chat. There's so many great resources mentioned in the chat. Go over to Slack later and look at all of those. And then I don't know if anybody who is good at using Canva wants to make a little loom or something like that and show how they did that. You can put that over in the chat too. There's lots of ways to do it. But what I'll share really quick, just another example, when this is way back when I was going for head of CS kind of roles, and they wanted a QBR sample thing. I was just like, really? All right. I'll give you plenty of reasons why I think that's not, anyway, but I did. So I did slides about the best practices and sample, and I again did a little employer journey thing for what they had. Then I did some, kind of just what the approach for a joint success plan and sales kickoff looks like. And this is just something, somebody listed a resource about artists stealing kind of from each other, which my sister was an artist and it's all about stealing from each other. It's all okay to steal. Anyway, this is from Jay and Jeff. I had used their joint success plan format from back then, and then had meeting objectives, QBR preparation, had like a sample outline. This is how Trevor was asking about how to cleanse something. So I said this was company A, and I did just sort of an outtake kind of thing, and I had what the situation was. And then I showed a little graph, and you can see that I had various categories in year 1, year 2. I cleansed it all, right? This was then another thing that I cleansed, but I gave them sort of what the situation was, right? And then this was the conclusion. So I did sort of a little story of how I led them through the QBR, because I didn't have an actual QBR to show them that was going to make any sense to them. So I reconfigured what the exercise was and said, this is what you should have asked me for, kind of. But anyway, and then I did another one where it was another example for company B, because I knew that what I was going to give them as an example wasn't going to pertain to their business. So I gave what the scenario was and why I did it. And that's why I did 2, to show them you have different scenarios, you do different types of situations and different responses, right? And then I went through and did a conclusion on that. And then again, did my relevant experience, and then had questions for them, and then said, thank you. And then had extra slides in the back, because you always give yourself extra slides in the back. So anyway, I just thought, since I found that, I would share that. If there's a way for me to cleanse that a bit more, I will, and I'll put that over in the Slack as well. What other things did you find when you went out to your breakout rooms? Any additional nuggets you want to share with everybody? I'll share
There's
one.
something that I shared.
Oh, good. All right. So I see, is it Lanny?
Lonnie.
Lonnie, I see her on top. And then who was the other voice? We'll go with your voice next.
That was me, Jillian.
Okay. Oh, Jillian. Okay. So Lonnie, then Jillian.
Yeah. I want to share something that Paul Bernstein in our group talked about. We got into the discussion around the portfolio versus like LinkedIn and kind of why have information one place and another. But Paul really liked his advice in terms of video and the power of video, and there's a good way to incorporate that in the portfolios. And then also just to make sure everything's linked together, because especially if you're trying to get a job or even just share your portfolio out, you can have the link on LinkedIn, you can have your LinkedIn link on your portfolio and then in your email. So really, I think where we landed a lot was around telling that story. And these are just all different pieces that can help you to really show what you can do.
Absolutely. That's a great point. You can always make it available, and that can be like your overall story. And then if you want to do something customized for a particular company, you can do something else for that. Yeah. And then Jillian?
Yeah, on the topic of like with the questions and just what to do with presentations, and kind of what you were just when you were showing your presentation. So something that I did was ask the company for their latest goals, like company goals and rocks that they wanted me to align with. So, if QBR, whatever it is, this case, it was more of an overall CS strategy, but it's sort of like, well, I can give you a CS strategy, but it would probably make a lot more sense if I knew where the company's North Star was and that sort of thing. So that really, I think that really helped in terms of also like resonating with everyone and core values as well, like the company's core values, if you're looking to resonate with everyone.
Absolutely. And some of those core values you can get from their website, but also asking those questions shows that's the type of leader you are. That's the type of CSM or leader that you are when you're working with them. And of course, you would ask your customers those questions. So modeling that behavior, it's great. Of course, then it's going to resonate more. It's great, Jillian. Charles.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. That's my MO. This question was in the chat before we jumped out, and someone had asked about learning how to build your portfolio in Salesforce, or like how that's done. Maryann and I are super passionate about Salesforce. We like nerd out over that. That's something we really connect on. I think building your portfolio in Salesforce is a neat idea, because that's a double whammy for you, right? Like you have a portfolio and you built it in Salesforce. It shows you know how to use Salesforce, and we're such big advocates of Trailhead. There is a Trailhead module on building your portfolio in Salesforce. I mean, so like you know how to do it. There's a whole module that will teach you how to do it, and it has examples of things you should include. And it's the enablement pinwheel I showed Jan, I have built a trail mix in Trailhead that I've used to enable teams I've led in the past, and that building your portfolio is part of that trail mix too. So there's a lot of good stuff there. It's all for free. Maryann and I would love to talk to you about Salesforce if you have questions about Salesforce.
Or Trailhead. I love Trailhead. You can go on there and learn so many things. It's wonderful.
Nice. And if you have a link to that and you want to put that over in the Slack, that would be fantastic.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
And
maybe you
Trailhead,
can
we
do
put the
that
link-
later on.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Trailhead link is in the resources. We put it in there,
Yeah,
but we'll add the portfolio one too.
yeah, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sticking around extra time tonight. I know for Mohammed, it is especially late. What time is it there for you in Jordan?
4:30.
No, it's at 3:30. So.
Oh, it's only 3:30.
Still-
Just
still
3:30.
early.
AM, not
Yes.
PM, guys.
Yep.
All right. All right. I'll be thinking of you when I go off to Singapore later this week. I'll be on the opposite time zone as well. All right. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate
you.
all your time today.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks,
See you in the
everybody.
community.
Thank
See you in
you.
LinkedIn.
Cheers.
Good night. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.